Investigators say they're not ruling out a connection between Gabby's disappearance and the murder of a couple found dead at a Utah campsite last month.
Sheila Beck. Hi, Mike. Can we talk about Kylen and Crystal, the honeymoon murders in Moab, please? Thank you. By the way, I love your show. Man, doesn't this one just drive you crazy? Sheila, I'm assuming it's Sheila. This one, I was a little surprised when Sheriff Steve White came out with that statement saying that the case is not tied to Brian Laundrie and his situation right now. And I say that for a couple of reasons. One is I find it interesting and coincidental, and you know how I feel about coincidence in this channel. I find it coincidental that when the 911 call is made and there's a report that says this man is striking this woman, and I think the reporting party even called him a gentleman, which just blew my mind. But says something about what a great person that was that called in on the call. But I found it interesting that I think it was Crystal that worked at the Moonflower, the same location. I'd like to know whether she was working that day.
Grant County Sheriff's Office.
Were you able to get a description of it?
Hi, can you hear me, sir? Yeah, I can hear you. Hi, I'm calling. I'm right on the corner of Main Street by Moonflower, and we're driving by, and I'd like to report a domestic dispute to Florida with the white van, Florida license plate, white land, gentleman.
Where's it at?
5'6" Deer. They just drove off. They're going down Main Street. They made a right onto Main Street from Moonflower.
Or what were they doing?
Cooperative, but what do you say?
What were they doing?
We drove by, and the gentleman was slapping the girl.
He was slapping her?
Yes, and then we stopped. They ran up and down the sidewalk. He proceeded to hit her, hopped in the car, and they drove off.
That I think it was Crystal that worked at the Moonflower, the same location. I'd like to know whether she was working that day. Is there a possibility that they could have crossed paths later, that Brian could have recognized that she was a witness to him doing something, or that they just got into some kind of conflict later where she said, I saw you hit a girl? Who knows? But isn't that an interesting coincidence? But here's the thing that really troubles me that I can't get an answer on. And that is that all the word on the street is that that Brian ends up within a day or so flying back to Florida and then returning on the 23rd, 24th-ish, I think the 23rd. So did he fly from Moab, which is possible? You take SkyWest Airlines up to Salt Lake City and then Salt Lake to Tampa or wherever they fly into in western Florida. So that kind of makes sense. If that happened, then did Gabby end up driving to Salt Lake by herself and checking into her hotel room? Because all we know from her dad is that he ordered pizza for her on the 21st, and that they were laughing and talking about her web page and trying to fix an email problem she was having on the web page. And because there was so much trouble with the internet, he just went ahead as a dad and ordered pizza for her. Now, when I asked the question directly, he wouldn't answer me. And that's always an interesting response when they say, I'm not going to answer that question. But you got to look at this case and say, wow, aren't those interesting? Because in between the time that Gabby and he leave Salt Lake and the time that they had the assault in Moab, The women disappeared, and then, of course, were found, I think, on the 18th of the month, murdered. Now, Sheriff Steve White says they are not tied together. And as you well know, Skyler, I know the sheriff. I would not trouble him in the middle of all of the things that they're facing down there. But I have, in the past, many years ago, when I was with the Attorney General, worked homicide cases with him. He's a good investigator. So I have to take at face value he's doing that. Yet I hear the people who say, well, maybe they're throwing a red herring to keep all the people from bugging them while they work the case. Maybe so, but that seems pretty risky to set up the public to think I can't trust word coming out of the sheriff's office. So all we have is them saying, hey, we don't think it ties in with the Laundrie case.